Robin Hood Seeks the Curtal Friar. The stout yeomen of Sherwood Forest were ever early risers of the morn, more especially when the summer-time had come, for then in the freshness of the dawn the dew was always the brightest, and the song of the small birds the sweetest. Quoth Robin, "Now will I go to seek the same Friar of Fountain Abbey, of whom we spaken yesternight. And I will take with me 4 of my good men, and these 4 shall be Little John, Will Scarlet, David of Dorchester, and Arthur a Bland. Bid the rest of you here, and Will stoutly shall be your chief while I am gone." Then straightway Robin Hood donned a fine steel coat of chain mail, over which he had put on a light jacket of Lincoln green. Upon his hand he clapped a steel cap, and this he covered by one of soft white leather, in which stood a nodding clerk's plum. By his side he hung a good broadsword of tempered steel, the blushing blade marked all over with strange figures of dragons, winged women, and what not. A gallant sight was Robin so arrangedly, I wot the glint of steel showing here and there as the sunlight caught brightly the links of polished mail that showed beneath his green coat. So, having arrayed himself, he and the 4 yeomen set forth upon their way, Will Scarlet taking the lead, for he knew better than the others whither to go. Thus, mile after mile, they strode along, now across a brawling stream, now along a sunlit road, now adown some sweet forest path, over which the trees met in green and rustling canopy, and at the end of which a herd of startled deer dashed away, with rattle of the leaves and crackle of branches. Onward they walked with song and yeast and laughter till noontide was past, when at last they came to a bank of a wide, grassy and lily-padded stream. Here a boat-beaten path stretched along beside the banks, on which path laboured an horse that tugged at the slow-moving barges, laden with barley meal or what not from the countryside to the merry towered town. But now, in the hot silence of the midday, no horse was even seen, nor any man beside themselves. Behind them and before them stretched the river, its placing bosom roughed here and there by the purple dusk of a small breeze. "Now, good uncle," quoth Will Scarlet at last, when they had walked for a long time beside this sweet, bright river, "just beyond yon bend ahead of us is a swallow ford, which in no place is deeper than thy mid-thigh, and up on the other side of the stream is a certain little hermitage, hidden amidst the bosky tangle of the thickest wherein dwelt the Friar of Fountain Dale. Thither will I lead thee, for I know the way, albeit it is not overhead to find." "Nay," quoth jolly Robin, stopping suddenly, "had I thought that I should have had to wade water, even where is so crystal a stream as this, I had donned other clothes than I have upon me. But no matter now, for after all the wetting will not fresh wash the skin away, and what must be must. But bide me here, lads, for I would enjoy this merry adventure alone. Nevertheless, listen well, and if ye hear me sound upon my budgel horn, come quickly." So saying, he turned and left them, striding onwards alone. Robin had walked no further than where the bend of the road hid his good man from his view, when he stopped suddenly, for he thought that he heard a voice. He stood still and listened, and presently heard words pass back and forth betwixt what seemed to be 2 men, and yet the two voices were wondrously alike. The sound came from over behind the bark, that there here was steep and high, dropping from the edge of the road a half-score of feet to the sedgy verge of the river. "This strange," muttered Robin to himself after a space, when the voices had increased their talking. "Surely there be two people that spoke to the other one, and yet methinketh their voices are mighty alike. I make my vow that never have I heard the like in all my life before. Truly, if this twine are to be judged by their voices, no two peas were ever more alike. I will look into this matter." So saying, he came softly to the river and bank, and lying him down upon the grass, peering over the edge and down below. All was cool and shady beneath the bank. A stout osier grew, not straight up onwards, but leaning across the water, shadowing the spot with its soft foliage. All around grew a mass of feathery fence, such as hide and nestle in cool places, and up to Robin's nostrils came the tender odour of the wild thyme, that laves the moist verges of running streams. Here, with the broad back against the rugged trunk of a willow tree, and half hidden by the soft ferns around him, sat a stout, brawny fellow, but no other man was there. His head was round as a ball, and covered with a mat of close-clipped braids, curly black hair that grew low down on his forehead. But his crown was shorn as smooth as the palm of one's hand, which, together with this loose rope, cord, and string of brands, showed that which his look never would have done, that he was a friar. His cheeks were as red and shining as the winter cap, albeit they were nearly covered over with a close curly black beard, as were his chin and upper lip likewise. His neck was thick, like that of a north curly bull, and his round head closely set upon his shoulder in a match for those of Little John's himself. Beneath his busky black-brown dances a pair of lightly grey eyes that could not stand still for very jolly of humour. No man could look into his face and not feel his heartstrings twinkle by the merriment of their looks. By his side lay a steel cap, which he had laid off for the sake of the coolness to his crown. His legs were stretched wide apart, and betwixt his knees he held a great pastry component of juicy beets of divers kinds, made savoury with tender young onions, both meat and onions being mingled with a good rich gravy. In his right fist he held a great piece of brown crust, at which he munched sturdily, and every now and then he thrust the left hand into the pie and drew it forth full of meat. Anon he would take a mighty pull of a great bottle of malmesbury that lay beside him. "By my faith," quoth Robin Hood to himself, "I do very believe that this is the merriest feast, that merriest with the merriest place and the merriest sight in all merry England. Methonden there was another here, but I must have been this holy man taken to himself." So Robin lay watching the friar, and the friar, all unknowing that he was so overlooked, ate his meal lazily. At last he was done, and having first whipped his greasy hands up on the ferns and wild thyme, and sweet napkin ne'er had king in all the world, he took up his flask and began talking to himself as though he were another man, and answering himself as though he was somebody else. "Dear lad, thou art the sweetest fellow in all the world. I do love thee, as a lover believeth his lass. La, thou dost make me shamed to speak so to me in this solitary place, no one being by, and yet if thou willst me say so, I do love thee as thou lovest me. Nay, then wilt thou not take a drink of good Malmsey? After thee, lad, after thee. Nay, I beseech thee, sweetens the draw with thy lips. Here he passed the flask from his right hand to his left, and thou wilt force it on me so, I must need by do bidding, yet with the more pleasure do I so as I drink thy very great health. Here he took a long deep draught. And now, sweet lad, 'tis thy turn next. Here he passed the bottle from his left hand back again to his right. I take it, sweet Crack, and here's whistling thee as much good as thou wishest me. Saying this, he took another draught, and truly he drank enough for two. All this time merry Robin lay upon the bank and listened, while his stomach so quickened with laughter that he was forced to press his palm across his mouth to keep it from bursting forth, for truly he would not have spoiled such a goodly yeast for the half of Nottinghamshire. Having gotten his breath from his last draught, the friar began talking again in his wise. Now, sweet lad, canst thou not sing me a song? La, I know not. I am but in an ill voice this day. Pray thee ask me not. Dost thou not hear how I croak like a frog? Nay, nay, thy voice is as sweet as a bully finch. Come, sing, I pray thee. I would rather hear thee sing than eat their feast. Alas, I would fain not sing before one that can pipe so well, and have heard so many goodly songs and ballads. Nevertheless, and thou wilt have it so, I will do my best. But now bethinkens that thou and I might sing some fair song together. Dost thou not know a certain dainty little catch called the laughing youth and the scornful maid? Why, Julie, methinkens I have heard it ere now. Then dost thou not think that thou couldst taken the lass's part, if I take the lad's? I know not, but I will try. Begin thou with the lad, and I will follow with the lass. Then singing first with a deep voice, and then a gruff, and anon in an high and squeaky, and he bitterly told the merry catch of the loving youth and the scornful maid. He? Ah, it's wilt thou come with me, my love, and it's wilt thou love he mine. For I will give unto thee, my love, gay knots and ribbons so fine. I'll woo thee, love on me bended knee, and I'll pipe sweet song to none but thee. Then it's hark, hark, hark to the winged lark, and it's hark to the cooing dove, and the bright daffodil grow down by the rill. So come thou and be my love. She. Now get thee away, young man so fine. Now get thee away, I say, for my true love shall never be thine, and thou so hast it better not stay. Thou art not a fine enough lad for me, so I'll wait till a better young man I see. For it's hark, hark, hark to the twined lark, and it's hark to the cooing dove, and the brightest daffodil grows down by the rill, yet never I'll be thy love. He. Then straight will I seek for another fair she, for May and many maiden can be found, and as thou wilt never have aught of me, by thee will I never be bound. For never is a blossom in the field so rare, but another are found that are just as fair. So it's hark, hark, hark to the jealous lark, and it's hark to the cooing dove, and the bright daffodil groweth down the rill, and I seeketh me another dear love. She, Young man, turn not so very quickly away, another fair less to find. Methinketh I have spoken unhastily to-day, nor have I made up my mind. And if thou only wilt stay with me, I love no another, sweet lad, but thee. Here Robin could contain himself no longer, but burst forth into a mighty roar of laughter. Then he, wholly Freya, keeping on with the song, he joined in the chorus, and together they sang, or as one mighty say below. So it's hark, hark, hark to the jealous lark, and it's hark to the cooing dove, for the bright daffodil grows down the hill, and I'll be thine own true love. So they sang together, for the stout friar did not seem to have heard Robin's laughter, neither did he seem to know that the yeoman had joined in with his song, but with eyes half closed, looking straight before him and winging his round head from side to side in time to the music, he kept on bravely to the end, and he and Robin finished up with a mighty roar that might have been heard a mile. But no sooner had the last word been sung than the holy man seized his steel cap, clapped into his hand, and springing to his feet, crying in a great voice, "What spy have we here? Come forth, thou limp of evil, and I will cave thee into a fine pudding meat, as ere a wife in Yorkshire cooked of a Sunday." Hereupon he drew from breath his ropes and great broadsword, full of stout as was Robin's. "Nay, put up thy pinking iron, friend," quoth Robin, standing up with the tears of laughter still on his cheek. "Folk who have sung so sweetly together should not fight thereafter." Hereupon he leaped down to the bank to where the other stood. "I tell thee, friend," said he, "my throat is as parched with the song as ere a barley stubble in October. Hast thou happily any marmalade left in that stout bottle?" "Truly," said the friar in a gloomy voice, "thou dost ask themselves freely where thou art not a burden, but yet I trust I am too good a Christian to refuse any man a drink that is athirst. Such as there is thou art welcome to drink of the same." And he held the bottle out to Robin. Robin took it without more ado, and putting it to his lips, tilting his head back while that which was within said gluk, 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 for more than 3 weeks I vow. The stout friar watched Robin anxiously the while, and when he was done, took the bottle quickly. He shook it, held it betwixt his eyes and the light, looked reproachfully at the yeoman, and straightway placed it at his own lips. When it came away again, there was naught within it. "Dost thou knowest the country hereabouts, thou good and holy man?" asked Robin laughingly. Yea, somewhat," answered the other dryly. "And thou knowest of a certain spot called Fountain Abbey?" "Yea, somewhat." "Then perhaps thou knowest also of a certain one who goeth by the name of the Curtal Friar of Fountain Abbey?" "Yea, somewhat." "Well then, good fellow, holy father, or whatever thou art," quoth Robin, "I would know wherever the same friar is to be found up on the side of the river or the other." "That," quoth the friar, "is a particular question upon which I cunning rules appertaining to the logic touch not. I do adverse thee to find that out by the aid of thine own 5 senses, sight, feeling, and what not." "I do wish much," quoth Robin, looking thoughtfully at the stout priest, "to cross yon forth, and strive to find the same good friar." "Truly," said the other piously, "it is a goodly wish on the part of one so young. Far be it from me to check thee in such a holier quest. Friend, the river is free to all." "Yea, good father," said Robin, "but thou seest that my clothes are of the finest, and I fain would not get them wet. Methinketh since thy should are stout and broad, couldst thou not find it in thine heart to carry me across? Now by the white hair of the holy Lady of the Fountain, burst forth the friar in a mighty rage. Dost thou poor honey stripling, thou kiss my Lady La Popinier, thou, what shall I call thee? Dost thou ask me, the holy tuck I, to carry thee? No, I swear. He paused suddenly, then slowly the anger passed from his face, and his little eyes twinkled once more. But why should I not, quoth he piously. Did not the holy Saint Christophora ever carry the stranger across the river? And should I, poor sinner that I am, be ashamed to do likewise? Come with me, stranger, and I will do thy bidding in a humble frame of mind. So saying, he clambered up the bank, closely followed by Robin, and led the way to the shallow Pelly ford, chuckling to himself the while as though he was enjoying some goodly yeast within himself. Having come to the ford, he grinned up the ropes about his loins, tucked this good broadsword beneath his arm, and stooped his back to take Robin up on it. Suddenly he straightened it up. Methinkens, quoth he, thou get thy weapon wet. Let me tuck it beneath mine arm along with my own.